Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on CBS News 24/7. I'm Chanel Call in for Vladimir Duthier. We start this hour with some breaking news. The suspect in the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson pleaded not guilty in New York City today. Luigi Mangione was arraigned on an 11-count indictment filed by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. He could see anywhere from 25 years to life in prison if found guilty. Last week, officials announced federal charges against him, including murder and stalking. Now, if he is convicted on those counts, Mangione could receive the death penalty. And now we go to CBS News correspondent Lilia Luciano, live for us in Manhattan this hour. Lilia, great to see you. I know you were inside the courtroom when all this happened. Walk us through what you heard and saw there.
Hey, Chanel. First of all, I'll make a note that what you're hearing is what we can only call fans or supporters of Luigi Mangione holding signs who are behind the cameras. So that's what you're hearing in terms of chants. We also saw some people who showed up inside the courtroom in support. What we saw is Luigi Mangione out of his prison jumpsuit again, wearing his khaki jeans, a button-down white shirt, and in this case, a burgundy sweater, paying attention to his attorneys, focused on what they were advising. He pleaded not guilty to those 11 counts, as you mentioned. His attorney, though, had very harsh words against officials. She said she called what happened last week a spectacle. The way that he was brought into the city from Altoona, Pennsylvania, by the NYPD, she said, was the biggest, most staged perp walk that I've seen in my entire career. Keep in mind, this is somebody who worked at the DA's office for 25 years and has been practicing law for more than 3 decades. She was saying that her client is not being respected, his rights, that the way officials have talked about him, they don't use terms like alleged when referring to him and accusing him of the murder and of terrorism. She said that more than anyone, that Mayor Eric Adams understands the importance of the presumption of innocence, basically noting his own legal proceedings now in court. And so the next date that we heard from the judge for his next appearance in court, at least on these state charges, are February 21st. Last week, when we were inside the courtroom on the federal, this was the state charges, on the federal charges, the judge mentioned the date of January 18th, but that's a Saturday, so we're still waiting to get some clarity on which proceeding will happen first, but there seems to be coordination between both the federal case and the state case, with the FBI and the NYPD collaborating. There were some discussions about discovery, especially from the prosecution, given the amount of evidence, as the prosecutor talked about, the amount of the thousands and thousands of hours of video evidence that they have and other kinds of evidence that they have been compiling against the defendant. So they were asking for a bit of patience in providing that disclosure to his defense. But it was quite a brief hearing today. He walked in. Was at one point they removed his handcuffs, then they put him back on, and then he walked out of court escorted by officials there.
And Lilia, I want to ask you about those requests made to the judge today, including expediting some of the discovery in this case. What else can you tell us about what his attorney is looking for?
That is what the defense is looking for. And of course, the prosecution is saying, look, the amount of evidence we have against this defendant is overwhelming. They talked also about this being unprecedented in terms of this is from the prosecution. The defense wants all of that discovery. And keep in mind, it's not just the evidence that was compiled here in New York, but when he was arrested in Altoona, Pennsylvania, at that McDonald's, where Altoona police took his backpack. They said that they found this ghost gun. They found this notebook with a to-do list with statements that police and detectives are indicating are evidence of premeditation. There's also that 3-page letter with more than 300 words, I believe it was, where he talks specifically about, according to authorities, targeting this CEO in particular. So all of that is what the defense is asking for in an expedited way so that they can build their case. And the prosecution is saying, look, we're working with several law enforcement agencies and a lot of evidence. Chanel.
All right, Lilia Luciano, live for us in Manhattan this hour. Thanks so much. And joining us now with more on this developing story is CBS News legal contributor Caroline Polisi. Caroline, great to see you again. I want to start with picking up on something that Lilia has said, talking about what we call a perp walk. The way that we saw Luigi Mangione come in today was quite starkly different than what we saw last week. Talk about why that might be and whether you think maybe he got some advice to show a different side.
Yeah, well, I can't say I'm surprised that Luigi Mangione's defense attorney, Karen Friedman Agnifilo, had some choice words for the prosecutors in this case. I think, when we saw him being taken in Altoona, he did have that outburst, much more staid, much more subdued now after the retention of Agnifilo. I think she likely told him to sort of downplay the situation because anything he does could be potentially used in court. But I think the bigger issue here is what she was complaining about, which is this huge fanfare and to do with extraditing, bringing Mangione to New York City, and the way in which both the state and federal prosecutors have really piled on. That's her term here. She said, in all her years of practicing, she's never seen anything like this. The way they're referring to him, apparently they're not using the words alleged when talking about the evidence and sort of presuming his guilt. Those are all really valid points. She's also made the case that this is an issue of double jeopardy with both the federal and state charges. Now, I don't think that will stick. They are different charges, but it is quite rare to see double prosecutions in this instance.
Okay, very interesting. Lots to follow here. Caroline Polisi, thanks so much. Former Florida Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz is suing the House Ethics Committee and its chairman to block the release of a report about his conduct. CBS News has obtained a final draft of that report. Congressional investigators allege President-elect Donald Trump's former pick for Attorney General paid multiple women for sex, including a minor. The report also found he bought and used illegal drugs. The long-running investigation concluded the Trump ally violated multiple state laws. Gaetz, who resigned from Congress following President-elect Donald Trump's plans to include him in his cabinet, has denied any wrongdoing. CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane joins us now with more on this. A lot to get through here, Scott. What's the former congressman's argument for keeping the report under wraps in this civil suit against the committee?
Yeah, in this lengthy 40-page civil suit, the former congressman's arguing that the details included in this forthcoming Ethics Committee report would be defamatory. He has argued consistently that the allegations are baseless and that he has been exonerated by the separate parallel Department of Justice investigation of misconduct. So he'd like a temporary restraining order to keep this report from being publicly released, which was expected today. The legal challenge, Chanel, was filed today here in Washington, D.C. federal court. We'll see what the judge decides to do. We'll also see what the committee decides to do if they do go forward and, in fact, release the report today.
And can you walk us through some of the evidence here, Scott?
What they're alleging in this Ethics Committee investigation is that there were payments made, and I've got the notes here from our findings, from the committee's findings and our review of it, that there were more than $90,000 exchanged to 12 different women between 2017 and 2020. What's more, they're alleging in this report that that was likely connected to sexual activity and to drugs that would include cocaine and ecstasy. The committee's investigation is alleging that Matt Gaetz had sex with a minor, with a 17-year-old, and that there was illicit drug use and messages involved with this alleged misconduct. But we got to underscore, Matt Gaetz has unequivocally and consistently denied these allegations and argued that he's been exonerated by a federal criminal investigation of allegations of misconduct. That's what's in the Ethics Committee report as reviewed by CBS News.
Scott, why did the Ethics Committee vote to release this when we know Gaetz is now no longer a member of Congress?
Yeah, why is a good question. We do know it's distinctive because for anything to move out of the House Ethics Committee, which has 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans, one member of the party has to join the others to get a majority. So somebody has joined up to have a majority of this Ethics Committee to order the release of a report publicly. There's been criticism of them doing so because Typically, the House Ethics Committee loses jurisdiction once a member leaves the body, no longer under the Ethics Committee's domain. Matt Gaetz stood down from his post. He quit his position in the House. So Republicans have argued you shouldn't release this report because he's not a member of Congress now. A majority of the committee appears to have voted to change that protocol in this case.
Okay, Scott McFarland, thank you so much. President Biden has commuted the sentences of 37 people on federal death row. The White House statement says the action builds on Biden's record of criminal justice reform and that he has issued more commutations at this point of his presidency than of any of his predecessors. Biden has called for ending the use of the death penalty at the federal level, with exceptions in cases of terrorism and hate-motivated mass murder. 3 death row inmates did not have their sentences commuted. The holiday travel swing is coming with some big hiccups as we track some wintry weather conditions across the country. Parts of the Northeast are seeing bitter cold and some icy conditions, while western states are bracing for rain. This could all bring some challenges for the nearly 120 million people trying to make it home by Christmas. CBS News senior national weather correspondent Rob Marciano is live for us in Tarrytown, New York. Rob, I hope you're able to stay warm in between live shots, but tell us a bit about what conditions are like there right now and what we're expecting to see over the next day or two.
Hey, Chanel. Well, the sun is our best friend this morning, right? Because it's been pretty cold. We started out at about 9 degrees, and now we're up to 16. So another day like yesterday for the Northeast where temperatures are going to stay below the freezing mark. And so, you know, if you're a White Christmas fan, you know, what little snow fell this weekend is sticking around. So sort of a White Christmas. There's that. But as you mentioned, it's a big travel week, obviously, 2 days before Christmas now. AAA is expecting a record number of people on the roads, on the rails. I'm just seeing the train go by right now, and in airplanes. Nearly 120 million. Most of those will be on the roadway. So this is a beautiful new bridge. It replaced the old Tappan Zee Bridge. It's the I-87, the New York Thruway, New York State Thruway that runs upstate, and that's going to be certainly very busy. The snow that fell this weekend, we got a couple inches here, but in eastern Mass, they saw nearly half a foot. So people had to get out the shovels, the plows, the whole 9 yards, and they had delays and cancellations to about 1,600 flights out of Logan. So huge issues there. You got another little pulse of snow that's going to come through, maybe tease us with more of a bit of a White Christmas here across the northeastern third. And as you mentioned, very active in the west. So I-5 is going to be a problem as far as rain goes from Seattle all the way down to San Francisco. I-80 going over Donner Pass, I-90 over Snoqualmie. We'll probably see some treacherous roads there. So a lot of activity in the weather department, Chanel, and we're just enjoying some calm winds and some sunshine and trying to get temperatures above the freezing mark, which won't happen today, but may happen tomorrow, if not that, sometime over Christmas.
Okay, good to know. Rob, thank you so much. And let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Grant Gilmore with a look at our national weather forecast. Hey, Grant.
Hey, good morning, Chanel. Look, Rob's not kidding. It's been really cold across the north and northeast over the last couple of days. Philly right now is at 19 degrees. Boston's at 16 with a wind chill there around 9 degrees. Temperatures do moderate over the next 24 hours, but the Clipper system currently moving through the Great Lakes states is going to bring a little bit of fresh snow, though it's not much. 27 million people, though, or so underneath these winter weather advisories stretching from the Great Lakes into the northeast this morning, where that Clipper system will move east. It'll bring some places up towards northern New York into Vermont and New Hampshire, maybe a half foot of snow, but most of the mid-Atlantic and northeast will see 1 to maybe 2 inches of snow. So that cold's locked in for today. Meanwhile, relatively mild conditions are in place out west. Rob alluded to it, though, a little bit of a lull in activity over in the west coast, where there's one atmospheric river yesterday. That's moving inland. Another round, though, begins to arrive later on tonight, with several rounds of rain and high elevation snow expected over the next couple of days. Chanel, back to you.
All right, Grant Gilmore, thank you. Coming up this hour, a U.S. Navy fighter jet was shot down over the Red Sea this weekend. What we're now learning about this case of apparent friendly fire. And we're less than a month away from President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration. Coming up, a look at the TV producer he chose as special envoy to the U.K. Stay with us. We'll be right back. You're watching CBS News 24/7. welcome back. We are following some breaking news this hour from New York City, where the suspect accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was just arraigned in Manhattan criminal court. We have some video taken from inside the courtroom during that arraignment. Let's watch.
We have two proceedings that we have to answer to, one of them being death eligible. So we are requesting that we get immediate discovery of the New York City Police Department and FBI and federal and state documents. And the second thing I want to make a record of, Your Honor, is I'm very concerned about my client's right to a fair trial in this case. He's being prejudiced by some statements that are being made by government officials. Like every other defendant, he is entitled to a presumption of innocence. But unfortunately, the way this has been handled so far, his rights are being violated. And as you know, Your Honor, there's a wealth of case law guaranteeing his right to a fair trial, but none of the safeguards have been put in place yet here. In fact, it's just the opposite of what's been happening. He's a young man, and he is being treated like a human ping pong ball between two warring jurisdictions here. These federal and state prosecutors are coordinating with one another, but at the expense of him. They have conflicting theories in their indictments, and they're literally treating him like he is like some sort of political fodder, like some sort of spectacle. He was on display for everyone to see in the biggest stage.
All right, you've been watching coverage of Luigi Mangione's arraignment on state charges connected to the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. This morning, he pleaded not guilty. He is also, we should mention, facing federal charges. You heard there moments ago Luigi Mangione's defense attorney asking the judge to expedite discovery in this case. We'll have more on this coming up at the top of the hour. To some other news we're following this hour, police in Germany now say they received tips last year about the man who is accused of killing 5 people when he drove his car through a Christmas market on Friday. The suspect has been identified as a 50-year-old doctor born in Saudi Arabia who migrated to Germany nearly 20 years ago. Police say he has no links to terrorism and expressed anti-Islamic views on social media. He has not been named publicly by authorities. More than 200 people were injured in Friday night's attack in central Germany. Officials are still investigating a motive. President-elect Donald Trump will return to the White House less than 1 month from today. Yesterday, he appeared in the battleground state of Arizona to speak at Turning Point USA's America Fest at the Phoenix Convention Center.
We're going to make these the 4 greatest years in the history of our country. With your help, we will restore America's promise. We will rebuild the nation that we love, and we will do it very, very fast. That's what we want.
CBS News correspondent Christian Benavides joins us now from West Palm Beach, Florida, with more on this story. Christian, Trump tapping The Apprentice producer Mark Bernett, certainly a name that many people will know, to be special envoy to the UK. Why?
Well, Chanel, Mark Bernett may not have diplomatic experience, but he certainly has something much more important, something that the president-elect values much more, which is his trust and his loyalty. Mark Bernett, best known, he was born in London, and he's known for producing hits like Survivor, The Voice, but perhaps best known for producing The Apprentice, which made Trump a household name. That show started back in 2004. Now, this is different from ambassador to the UK. Businessman Warren Stevens was picked for that. In theory, what would happen with this role, Bernett would perhaps handle not the most important diplomatic relation issues. In a statement, Trump said that he will work to enhance diplomatic relations, focusing on areas of mutual interest, including trade, investment opportunities, and cultural exchanges. Now, this may signal that Bernett could be key in addressing bilateral commercial ties. Trump has, as we all know, been focused on international trade as he prepares to head back to the White House.
And Christian, Trump, we also know, is threatening to now retake control of the Panama Canal. I want to play a bit of what he said about this in Phoenix yesterday.
It was given to Panama and to the people of Panama, but it has provisions. You got to treat us fairly, and they haven't treated us fairly. If the principles, both moral and legal, of this magnanimous gesture of giving are not followed, then we will demand that the Panama Canal be returned to the United States of America in full, quickly, and without question. I'm not going to stand for it.
So he's talking about the country basically being mistreated, he says. Give us some context here, Christian. What's going on here?
Well, it's unclear what has set off the president-elect's obsession with the Panama Canal, but he clearly feels that America is being, as he says, mistreated. He's also said that the fees that shippers are being charged are ridiculous to pass the canal, calling the decision to cede the canal back in the 70s foolish. Now, the Panamanian president has responded to this. He was just elected in May on a pro-business platform. He wrote, Panamanians may have different views on many issues, but when it comes to our canal and our sovereignty, we will all unite under the Panamanian flag.
Okay, and Christian, the president-elect also accused the European Union of treating the U.S. badly on Sunday. This after saying the bloc is going to buy more oil and gas from our country. Let's listen.
The European Union is suddenly talking about buying vast new quantities of natural American, beautiful natural gas. The European Union's treated us very, very badly. We have hundreds of billions of dollars with deficits. They don't take our cars. They don't take our agricultural product, but we take theirs. And they've got to be careful. They can't treat us that way. They're not going to be treating us that way for long. That I can tell you.
And so Christian, Trump also posted online Friday, basically threatening the European Union with tariffs over oil and gas. Talk to us more about this and the president-elect's far-reaching plan for imposing tariffs once he takes office.
Right. Well, look, the European Commission actually said that it was receptive to listening to what Trump has to say and looking for ways to strengthen relationships there, in a statement saying that the EU is committed to phasing out energy imports from Russia and diversifying our sources of supply. We should note that they are already our biggest buyers of energy. Chanel?
Okay, Christian Benavides, thank you. Several teams across the NFL continue their playoff push during an exciting weekend of football ahead of the holidays. One of those teams is the Washington Commanders. These guys pulled off a stunning 36-33 comeback win against the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday. Rookie quarterback Jayden Daniels led the way with a 5-touchdown performance, putting the Commanders on the brink of a playoff berth. Shanna McCarriston joins us now to recap all the action this weekend. She is an NFL writer for CBS Sports. Shanna, great to see you. Let's start with that Commanders-Eagles game. Did Jayden Daniels lock in Rookie of the Year with that performance yesterday?
Well, 5 touchdowns certainly didn't hurt his chances. I'll say that. They put him at 22 touchdowns for the year. For betting odds, he has the biggest betting odds here. He is most likely going to lock in that offensive Rookie of the Year, and he deserves it. He's been playing great. He's had a few games where, he hasn't been that 5-touchdown performance, but yesterday was just fantastic from him. So I think he's got it this year.
And so what does the playoff picture now look like for the rest of the league after Week 16?
Yeah, so it's interesting because the AFC only has 2 spots left. They have locked in 5 teams already. And the NFC is a bit different. They have 4 spots left. So in the AFC, we have 5 teams fighting for 2 spots. And in the NFC, we have 6 teams fighting for those 4 spots. So I think these next couple of games, every single game, every single play is so important for these next few weeks. And we'll see tonight, too. We have a playoff situation here with the Packers. So these teams really got to kick it into high gear. And these teams who have been eliminated from the playoffs, we saw this with the Cowboys last night. They're not letting up just because they're eliminated from the playoffs. They're still playing at 100%. So they're not making it easier for those teams who are really trying to extend their season into the postseason.
Yeah, let's chat about tonight and tee things up for folks who maybe missed what came into this. The Packers, of course, clinching this playoff berth with that win. How might they stack up against the Saints?
So the Saints are 5-9 while the Packers are 10-4. So just looking at their record alone, they are a bit mismatched and the Packers have the edge. The Saints are also dealing with a laundry list of injuries, including quarterback Derek Carr, who is likely out for the season. So they're going to have rookie Spencer Rattler leading their offense. And, the Packers, I think, will kind of expose him and will make his day a bit hard on Monday Night Football. So I think the Packers win this, and I think they get into the playoffs. I believe it's deserved. The Packers have a very difficult division with the Lions and the Vikings. So the Packers deserve this spot, and I think they're going to win.
Okay, Shannon McCarriston, thanks so much for breaking all this down for us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
A record holiday travel season begins today. Coming up next, we'll go over the numbers and tell you the best ways to travel throughout the winter season. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on CBS News 24/7. I'm Chanel Call in for Vladimir Duthier. Here's a look at some of the top stories we're following right now. Former Florida Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz is suing the House Ethics Committee and its chairman to block the release of a report about his conduct. CBS News has obtained a final draft of the report. Congressional investigators allege Gaetz paid multiple women for sex, including a minor. Their report also found he bought and used illegal drugs. Gaetz, who resigned from Congress following President-elect Donald Trump's plans to include him in his cabinet, has denied any wrongdoing. High-end retailer Nordstrom Department Stores has agreed to be acquired by members of the family that founded the century-old business. Eric and Pete Nordstrom, along with Mexican retail giant El Puerto de Liverpool, will pay a little over $24 per share to the company's stockholders. The business will then revert to being privately held company. And frightening scenes in Turkey where a cargo ship rolled onto its side in the port of Istanbul. The local governor's office says the ship was being loaded when it became imbalanced and rolled onto its side. Rescuers quickly reached 10 crew members. Another 5 dove from the ship and are also okay. A record number of Americans are traveling for the holidays this year, and lots of those travelers are making their plans at the last minute. According to AAA, more than 119 million people will travel at least 50 miles from home between the start of the rush last week and New Year's Day. About 90% of them are traveling by car. Meanwhile, the TSA says it expects to screen nearly 40 million passengers, marking a 6% increase over last year. For more on this, let's bring in Megan Sprell. She is the Associate Director of Articles at Condé Nast Traveler. Great to see you, Megan. A busy time of year, as we know. What are some of the best tips you can follow if you're making some last-minute travel plans this season?
Yeah, I would say it's going to be a little chaotic, but the best thing you can do is just try and think about when everyone else is going to be traveling, right? Try to avoid the times that everyone else is going to be on the road or heading to the airport. Allow extra time and have a plan B. Just mentally prepare that flights might get delayed. It might take longer than you expect to get to your destination. But if you're ready for that and willing to roll with the punches and also just stay calm, try to minimize the stress and be kind to everyone around you, I think it can be better than, you anticipate.
Megan, something that I'm hearing a lot this year is folks who are staying home, hunkered down for the holidays, but looking to travel after the holidays. What are some of the hot destinations to get to maybe post-New Year's?
Yeah, so we just shared a list of the best places to go in the U.S. in 2025 and a list of the best food destinations for next year. I would get a head start. So if you want to do something last minute, maybe you have some time off between Christmas and New Year's, look at those lists, see if there's anywhere within driving distance of you so you can plan something a little more last minute, a little more flexible. I'm also hearing about people finding some really good flight deals right now. I think if you're willing to travel on, holidays that are slightly less desirable, so maybe that's very early morning on New Year's Day, maybe you're not a New Year's Eve person and you're willing to travel then, you can usually find a deal if it's not when everyone else wants to go. Also, January is kind of a slower month. So start looking ahead. Maybe there's a weekend in Puerto Rico or somewhere that feels far away, but it's not that far to get to.
Yeah, that's some great advice. Megan, I also want to ask about active weather that we're tracking across the country today and over the next couple of days. How much can that and will that affect travel during the season?
It's always hard to say, but again, I think just be mentally prepared. And if you are, have extenuating circumstances that make it really difficult to pivot on a dime. So if you're traveling with children or you have multiple travel plans back to back, that if one goes wrong, it's a domino effect. Just think through what could go wrong, what delays might look like for you, and be prepared and hope for the best.
Yes, having a plan B is a really good piece of advice. Megan Sprell, great to see you. Happy holidays. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
And now let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Grant Gilmore with a look at our national weather forecast. Okay, so tell us what we have to look forward to the next couple of days, Grant.
I love it. Be prepared and just hope for the best, right? Yeah, that's going to be the concern. It's hard to avoid weather this time of the year. It certainly kind of just goes with the territory. Let me pull up a couple of things here. Let me show you what's happening across the country, where really the main storm system, at least for today, is an Alberta Clipper storm system, which is coming in from Canada. These systems are usually relatively weak and relatively moisture-starved. You see producing the snow across the Great Lakes right now. It's actually moving into an area across the Northeast, which is still under the grips of an Arctic air mass, which is now putting temperatures currently in New York City around 19 degrees. So it is very cold in the Northeast right now, but cold doesn't typically in itself produce travel issues. It is ultimately that precipitation, which the West Coast will begin to see another atmospheric river arrive. Let's talk temperatures first here. Across a good portion of the United States as we go into the next couple of days into Christmas Day. Today, still cold in the Northeast, but look at much of the country running above normal. Places like Denver at 57 today, that's 15 degrees warmer than normal. Tomorrow, we see even more moderation over on the East Coast with warmer than normal conditions across a good bit of the country. Into Christmas Day, once again, most of the country running above normal. The East Coast, especially up into the Northeast, will be a little bit cold, but kind of seasonal with temperatures in New York Christmas Day around 37 degrees. Now, there's that Alberta Clipper system producing the snow across the Great Lakes states. This system has 27 million of us underneath some sort of winter weather threat, be it snow, maybe some ice, and most of that heaviest snow accumulation is going to be to the north. Northern New York up into Vermont, Maine, and even New Hampshire seeing upwards of maybe a half foot of snow, 5 to 7 inches or so. So it's cold in the Northeast, a little bit of moderation over the next couple of days. Over on the West Coast, a lull in the rain today, but another atmospheric river brings quite a bit of rainfall as we go into tonight, and then several rounds of rain and high elevation snow continues over the next couple of days into Christmas Day. Chanel?
All right, good to know. Grant Gilmore, thank you. New York City police say they are holding a person of interest in connection with an attack where a woman was set on fire on a subway train. Police say this person is from Guatemala and has been in New York since 2018. He was tracked down on a different subway train wearing the same clothes, and police say he had a lighter on him. So far, no charges have been filed, but police are still questioning him. Japanese car makers Nissan and Honda are now in talks to merge in an effort to compete with Chinese rivals and Tesla on electric vehicles. The collaboration would create the world's third largest automaker. Honda's CEO insists it is not a bailout for Nissan, which cut thousands of jobs and saw a large dip in sales last month. Okay, we're going to take a quick break right now. We've got much more news straight ahead. Stay with us. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Welcome back. President-elect Donald Trump is dismissing concerns about Elon Musk's influence. The billionaire helped tank a measure to avert a government shutdown last week. He eventually got behind a funding bill that passed with the help of House Democrats. Speaking in Phoenix last night, Trump brushed aside claims from many Democratic lawmakers that, quote, President Musk was running the show.
They're on a new kick. Russia, 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 Ukraine, 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 all the different hoaxes. And the new one is President Trump has ceded the presidency to Elon Musk. No, that's not happening. But Elon's done an amazing job.
All right, let's now bring in CBS News political contributor Joel Payne and CBS News political analyst Leslie Sanchez. Joel is a Democratic strategist and Leslie is a Republican strategist. Thanks to you both. Great to see you this morning. Leslie, Trump noted Musk could never be president because he wasn't born in the U.S. But do you think there is any merit to this criticism we're seeing sort of come up that the billionaire has too much political influence?
I think if it wasn't this, it was going to be something else. Clearly, I think the Democrats and a lot of this, this kind of antithetical, this opposition machine is going to come up with a lot of ideas. The truth is, we don't really know until the president takes office and we see his kind of political prowess and being able to move forward on his agenda. You're not going to really know who the political players are going to be. There's no doubt that Musk has a tremendous amount of influence on the president and the Republican Party, you could argue, and even among, the base voters who are on X. But he doesn't command the White House. And I think anything like that is water on a duck's back to the former president, to Trump, because he recognizes it doesn't stand on its merit. I mean, it's a great talking point, but it doesn't really have any relatability, I think, in terms of effectiveness.
Joel, I want to come to you on this. Democrats also stepped in again to help keep the government open. Are there any lessons here for Trump, you know, as he now stares down an even tighter Republican House majority next year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Democrats are concerned about making sure that the American people get what they need from government. You know, that's a thing that Republicans haven't really been too concerned with in the Trump era is governing. Politicking and campaigning is easy, right? Having a lot of opinions about things, you know, kind of speaking your mind and kind of going fast and loose with the facts is easy, but actually governing is hard. I think what's remarkable to me about, you know, the conversation you were just having about Elon Musk is he was able to kill a piece of legislation with a series of tweets, with a thread, which does, I think, support the idea that Donald Trump may not actually be in control of the MAGA machine that he built. We know that he has his presidency to thank to Elon Musk because of the tens of millions of dollars that he spent. And it would not be surprising to me if Elon Musk said, I am here to collect on my investment. I invested all this money in getting you elected. Why wouldn't Elon Musk want to go and take control, whether it's Doge or get the president's ear, be a part of the president's inner circle, and yes, force the president's hand on certain decisions? I'm not sure if Donald Trump actually knew what his opinion was on the government shutdown. All they did was cut out funding for childhood cancer research and support. That's literally all they did in that, you know, stagnated 3 or 4 days that they created between the original bill that Speaker Johnson presented and the one that ended up going to the president's desk. So I think there's a very good case for the fact that Donald Trump, who will be a lame duck very shortly into this term, doesn't really have control and has allowed a billionaire who has bought access to have his ear and have control of the presidency.
If we could. If we could, I mean, I'm just going to say, you know, I can't agree with any of that. You know, and I agree with a lot of things my good friend, my brilliant friend Joel says. But to say that Trump is going to be a lame duck, I think it's the opposite of that. I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of dedicated focus on realigning government, making government more accountable, and trying some unorthodox things. And I can guarantee the first year of this new administration is not necessarily going to look like the second year because there's already eyes focused on 2026. The president has an understanding. He has a compressed amount of time to get the budget reconciliation. He didn't, the reason on this debate was about the debt ceiling, that the president didn't want to take that into his new administration. Now he will have to. Now there's going to be this kind of very strong alignment with the new leadership, with, I would say, continued leadership of the House with Speaker Johnson. But there's a lot of hand-wringing that's going to go on as part of this new governance, but it doesn't discount how effective it could be, because I think the Republican Party is aligned in border security, tax cuts, energy independence, you know, removing restrictions for small business and even larger business, making U.S. competitive. So that's what I think is more of a realistic expectation going forward.
But who do you think, Leslie, will be the power brokers here in this upcoming term? You know, we heard from Joe Manchin speaking on Face the Nation yesterday. I just wonder who you think will be behind.
I was going to defer. I was interested to hear what Joel had to say about that. You know, there's no doubt where you see this, maybe this troika of influence. Could it be Musk for Trump? Could it be Susie Wiles? Certainly, it usually is the chief of staff. I think it's going to be the speaker. That is going to be one thing. But more realistically, it's the chief of staff, the Speaker of the House, and the head of the Senate. It coming together to come in alignment with what the president wants to get done. Looking at these tax cuts, looking at border security, looking at you know, U.S. competitiveness, strengthening the military. All of these things take a tremendous acrobatic act of governance to move it to the president's desk. And they realize that from the mistakes, not only of the first administration, but others, that he has to act quickly.
Okay, Joel Payne and Leslie Sanchez. Wish we had some more time, but thanks for your time and perspective today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
The holiday movie season starts with a pretty wild upset. This weekend's big winners and what we're looking forward to coming up. You're streaming CBS News 24/7.
Easy, buddy. We don't want to fight you.
Actually, Sonic, I would like to fight.
All right, he may not have been looking for a fight, but Sonic the Hedgehog took down the competition with ease at the weekend box office. The third feature-length starring the iconic 90s video game character was up against some stiff competition, too. And the holiday movie season is just getting started. Joining me now with more on all of this is the managing editor of Fango, Eric Davis. Eric, great to see you. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
And you came dressed appropriately. Tell us about this weekend's big winner, because it's a special one for you.
Yeah, I love Sonic. I grew up playing the video games. And what is interesting about this Sonic the Hedgehog movie is that it is the best of all three, according to both critics and audiences at Rotten Tomatoes. It is the highest rated.
Wow.
So, I mean, this is actually turning out to be one of the better animated films of the entire year, coming at the tail end of the year. Kind of a nod to Tails, a character in this. Shadow, also voiced by Keanu Reeves, is a new character. And, of course, classic Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey playing two Robotnik roles in this film. Maybe that's how it got those high scores.
And interesting to note, too, that it's the third one, right? And that doesn't happen often where you see the third one really peak.
No, exactly. Yeah, usually sometimes it starts out hot and then it kind of trails out. But yeah, Sonic is hitting its stride in its third movie. Paramount just announced a fourth Sonic the Hedgehog movie that is in development now. So plenty more Sonic on the way.
Fans are going to be very happy about that. A lot of other big titles to watch if you're around over the holidays and have some time. Tell us about your hot picks for the season.
Yeah, I also really like Mufasa, the Lion King prequel. This tells the story of how Mufasa and Scar went from brothers to be enemies, which is a storyline we see play out in the original Lion King. The music in this film is all from Lin-Manuel Miranda, and you really sense that. It's all over that music, and I think it's got a nice story of ancestors and your family history and how your family history helps kind of shape who you eventually become. So it's a really great film to see if you have multiple generations of family hanging out at the house this week.
Love that. A couple of other big names, too. I mean, Wicked. You were saying that there's some new and fun opportunities to watch this movie now.
Exactly. Wicked still doing really well, still in theaters, but there are sing-along screenings of Wicked this week. So if you want a screening that's a little bit more participation from the audience, then go see the sing-along screenings. Have a great time with Wicked. In fact, my daughter is going with a bunch of her friends this week to see the sing-along screening. And so it's going to be a great time. And Wicked's still doing very well at the box office.
And, you know, we're only just weeks away from some of the big award shows. I wonder if there's any Oscar buzz that you think people should kind of lean into, movies that we can watch now that we might see kind of pop up on those lists?
Yeah, there are actually the smaller films that are out this Christmas week are all big awards contenders. One that I want to shout out is called The Brutalist, and this may actually be a Best Picture contender. It stars Adrian Brody, and it's about a man who, post-World War II, comes out of the concentration camps, comes to America, searching for the American dream. But what happens when that American dream becomes an American nightmare? The upside-down Statue of Liberty that you see on the poster foreshadows what is to come in this film. But it's an exceptional movie, feels very epic in scope, and I think it could be a Best Picture contender.
Got it. Okay, good to know. Lots of ways to keep busy. Eric Davis, thank you so much. Happy holidays to you and yours.
Take care.
Coming up throughout the afternoon here on CBS News 24/7, we'll bring you updated weather forecasts and the latest from the roads and airports as winter weather impacts millions of holiday travelers. And we'll also bring you the latest from Capitol Hill, where the House Ethics Report into former Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz has been released. Stay with us. You're watching CBS News 24/7.